More trainee doctors joined the collective action against the expansion of the medical school's enrollment quota. And tonight, we take a look at how dire the medical situation is in rural areas and what the doctors on strike are arguing for. President Yoon is promising nuclear power projects worth billions of dollars. He visited the industrial city of Gangwon today to discuss these policies with the people. South Korea's central bank holds its key rate steady at 3.5% once again to keep inflation in check. It's February 22nd, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. More trainee doctors in the nation joined the collective action, and about 2/3 of trainees have walked out so far, causing some disruption at hospitals. Now, there's a more fundamental question behind this. How dire is the medical situation in rural areas, and what the doctors on strike are arguing for? Our Yoon takes a closer look.
The nationwide doctor strike continued on Thursday with over 9,000 trainee doctors, more than 74% of the country's interns and residents, submitting letters of resignation. Out of these, over 8,000 have not shown up for work. The government remains firm in its stance that it will take strong measures, including license suspensions and legal action, against those who do not comply with the return to work orders. Those taking part in the strike are arguing that South Korea, facing a shrinking population, already has a sufficient number of doctors with a high standard of medical service. They say enhancing the working environment for physicians through better pay or exploring methods to better allocate them so that certain areas of medicine do not experience a lack of doctors should come first. However, the government says the quota expansion is to better tackle the healthcare disparity that exists between the capital and areas outside it. Then how severe is this disparity?
The situation is extremely serious, not only in rural areas, but also in metropolitan areas like Incheon. Small hospitals and public medical institutions are facing even more severe shortages to the extent that they can't hire doctors no matter how much they advertise. So some departments are unable to operate at all.
At Incheon Medical Center, where Professor Jo also acts as the chief director, there are 39 working doctors, but it needs 45. He says increasing the number of doctors is crucial, but more needs to be done.
I believe that it's crucial to not only increase the number of doctors, but also ensure they're placed in essential medical fields and in regions that need them, creating favorable conditions to attract dedicated physicians.
With more doctors not showing up to work each day, Professor Jo says they should engage in dialogue with the government and come up with some sort of agreement. Yoon, Arirang News.
Visiting the industrial city of Gangwon today, President Yoon promised to revive the country's nuclear power. There will be new projects worth billions of dollars, and the president vows to take bold steps for deregulation. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea expects to create $2.5 billion worth of nuclear power projects with aggressive state support and regulatory change to promote the industry as an export cash cow. On Thursday, President Yoon held the 14th round of policy discussions with non-government panels and citizens to discuss ways to promote the nuclear power sector to ramp up local jobs and boost livelihoods. Yoon stressed the need to transition to zero carbon for both energy and economic security, particularly as South Korea's advanced tech industries rely on a colossal amount of energy. Declaring 2024 as the start of a new leap forward for the nuclear sector, the president said some $2.5 billion worth of projects will be supplied, as well as extra financing worth $750 million.
정부는 원전 산업의 정상화를 넘어서 올해를 원전 재도약의 원년으로 만들기 위해 전폭 지원을 펼칠 것입니다. 계약만 하는 것이 아니고 먼저 선지급을 통해서 기업들이 숨을 쉴 수 있도록 할 것입니다. 또 조세 특례 제한법 시행령을 개정해서 원전 제조를 위한 시설 투자나 연구 개발도 세제 혜택 대상에 포함시킬 것입니다.
To create a stable ecosystem that's globally competitive, the government will invest over $3 billion in research and development to support firms and universities carrying out cutting-edge innovation, particularly as South Korea looks to develop homegrown small module reactors. Yoon also pledged to enact a special law to back the sustainable growth of the industry and produce a mid to long-term plan for 2050 to achieve carbon neutrality. Calling the city of Changwon the heart of the nation's nuclear industry, Yoon said the government will loosen land use regulations to allow factories to be built, promoting convergence of the nuclear and defense industries in particular. To attract young people to the city to work and live, the president said a cultural centre will be built, as well as attractive spots for leisure. Also, the administration will create a corporate innovation park on Koddae Island, just off the south coast, as a base for the cultural, arts, digital and biomedical industries. Having reversed the previous administration's nuclear phase-out policy, the government says Korean firms have procured over $3 billion worth of overseas orders to build nuclear power plants during this current government, 6 times what was accumulated during the last administration. In line with Yoon's policy, the nation's nuclear power operator has been aiming to win overseas orders to build 10 nuclear reactors by the year 2030. 오수영, Arirang News.
On the economic front, the nation's central bank holds its key rate steady at 3.5% once again to keep inflation in check. Our finance correspondent Moon Hae-ryun explains.
South Korea's central bank kept its benchmark interest rate steady at 3.5% as widely expected. The decision was announced on Thursday following a monetary policy committee meeting.
Due to supply chain risks posed on global oil prices and continued high consumer costs, slowing inflation will not be easy. We believe that it is necessary to stabilize the inflation rate to the 2% level by maintaining monetary tightening for a sufficient period of time.
This is the 9th consecutive meeting that the BOK has decided to freeze the rate since it was raised to 3.5% in January last year, following 10 consecutive rate hikes in a bid to tackle inflation. Analysts say that there is little reason to rush the lowering of interest rates due to higher-than-targeted price hikes and continued growth in household debt. Last month, on-year growth in consumer prices fell to the 2% range for the first time in 6 months, but at 2.8%, it remains above the 2% target. It is also unlikely that the BOK will cut interest rates ahead of the United States, with the current key interest rate gap between the two countries at its largest ever at 2 percentage points. Local experts believe that the central bank could ease their monetary policy in the second half of the year, provided the Federal Reserve's pivot policy takes effect in June as currently predicted. Meanwhile, the BOK also maintained its economic growth outlook for this year at 2.1%, as well as the inflation forecast at 2.6% as set last November. A rebound in exports offset sluggish domestic demand, with the country seeing the biggest surge in overseas chip shipments in 6 years last month. The goods account surplus is projected to reach $52 billion this year, driven by the ongoing recovery in the semiconductor sector. But there is still a high level of uncertainty around economic conditions to come.
Right now, there seems to be an increased demand due to more demand because higher use of AI. But if the high interest rate in the United States continues longer than expected, then high-tech companies and AI companies may not make as much investment as expected in the latter part of the year, especially if the interest rate cut in the United States comes later than expected.
Going forward, the BOK says that it will continue to assess domestic and external economic uncertainties and maintain its restrictive policy stance until it is confident that inflation will converge with its target level. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Amid the government and companies alike stepping up to address declining birth rates in the country, there is one company in particular that has been making the headlines recently for its baby bonuses. To explain why, our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin joins me. Hi, Soo-jin.
Good to be here, Jung-min.
First, First of all, can you tell us what this company is doing to boost birth rates?
Well, it's safe to say that no expenses are being spared in their efforts to boost the birth rate. Buyong Group, a construction company, last week paid a whopping 100 million won, or 75,000 US dollars, for every child that its employees, both male and female, had since 2021 as a baby bonus. The total amount given for the 70 babies born during that period came to millions of dollars. And it plans to continue giving employees 100 million won in cash for every child they have. Bae Jun-bum, who has worked at Buyong Group for nearly a decade, became a father for the first time in August last year. And he was just as surprised as anyone when he heard the rumors that his company would be providing 100 million won as a baby bonus. This meant a lot to him because he, as do many others, have been worried about the high costs of raising a child in South Korea. He says that the baby bonuses have already led employees to become more open to the idea of having children. Let's take a listen.
Costs of education and real estate are higher here in Korea. But now, thanks to the baby bonuses, colleagues around my age have started to plan for a baby and others are preparing for a second.
Well, that's interesting, but I hear there is a tax issue here. Why are the company and its workers have to pay taxes for this?
Well, that's actually the exact question that pretty much everyone's been asking recently. So Buyong spending millions of dollars on baby bonuses has shed light on a major flaw in the tax code in South Korea. Namely, that either the company or its employees will have to pay large amounts in tax. Here's what the same employee said.
I'm part of the accounting team, so I saw firsthand how the baby bonus was deposited. And when the 100 million won baby bonus was also directly deposited into an account under my own child's name, it felt like a dream. But now the tax burden may fall on my child.
If the baby bonus is considered as part of the employee's income, an employee whose annual salary was originally around 50 million won, or around $37,000, will end up in the 38% tax bracket because of the added baby bonus. The employee will subsequently have to pay taxes amounting to around 38 million won. But the company will be able to receive tax deductions as employee income counts as necessary business expenses. But if the baby bonuses are classed as a gift given by the company, the employee will only have to pay a gift tax rate of 10%, which will come to around 10 million won. And this is also why Buyong deposited the baby bonus into the bank accounts under the names of the children of the employees.
And is there any way to alleviate these tax burdens?
Right, so many experts are actually weighing on what the best solution is. And President Yoon also emphasized on Tuesday this week that the government will come up with measures to support companies that are making efforts to boost birth rates. Let's take a listen.
최근 파격적인 규모의 출산 장려금을 비롯해서 저출산을 극복하기 위한 기업 차원의 노력이 확산되고 있어서 정말 반갑고 고맙게 생각합니다. 기업의 노력을 더욱 활성화하기 위해 세제 혜택 등 다양한 지원 방안을 신속히 마련하겠습니다.
When tax experts said that one such incentive that the government can provide is to look at the baby bonuses given by the companies as a gift. Here's what he said.
The entity receiving the bonus is the baby, which means that it should be seen as a gift. The tax law should also be revised so that the gift tax exemption amount is increased. That's the only way birth rates will go up.
As for the company, the expert said that the corporate tax law should be revised so that the baby bonuses are regarded as deductible business expenses. Another way to mitigate tax burdens is to increase the current tax-free threshold for baby bonuses to 100 million won. The Finance Ministry is expected to announce measures in early March that will make sure that both companies and their employees will not be saddled with additional tax burdens due to baby bonuses. And while financial incentives alone won't boost birth rates, making sure that these companies receive tax benefits will provide a foundation for other policies in the future.
All right, thanks for your report today, Jin.
Thanks for having me.
South Korea's foreign ministry called in a senior Japanese diplomat on Thursday to protest an event in Japan held to highlight its territorial claim over Korea's Dokdo Island. The ministry summoned Taitsuke Mibae, the deputy chief of mission at the Japanese embassy in Seoul, calling on Japan to abolish the annual event, which was attended by a high-level Japanese government official. It has made clear once again that Dokdo is the territory of South Korea, historically, geographically, and under international law, dismissing Japan's repeated claim. Top diplomats of South Korea and the U.S. will meet in Washington next week. Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol, who is currently visiting Brazil to take part in the G20 foreign ministers meeting, will travel to the U.S. to sit down for talks with his American counterpart, Antony Blinken. The two sides will likely discuss ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation on issues including economic security and extended deterrence against North Korea's nuclear threats. During his visit, Cho is also expected to ask the Biden administration to pay close attention to South Korean companies' concerns about the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. Disgraced cryptocurrency entrepreneur Kwon is likely to face a U.S. court on fraud charges despite efforts to have him extradited to South Korea following a Montenegro court ruling. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
22 months since first going on the run and 11 months on from his arrest, a Montenegro court ruled that crypto entrepreneur and Terraform's Live co-founder Do Kwon should be extradited to the United States. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal on Wednesday, the Pokoricha High Court ruled that Kwon is to be extradited to the U.S., where he has been indicted on charges of crimes committed in the field of financial operations. In 2023, Kwon and Terraform were charged by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission over a multi-billion-dollar fraud. The report added that the court rejected South Korea's request for extradition. Kwon's lawyer argued that his client should be extradited to his home country rather than the U.S. However, the court ruled otherwise. The basis for the decision by the court was not revealed. Kwon was arrested at an airport in Montenegro last March after being caught with fake passports. The charges laid against Kwon and Terraform Labs stem from the collapse of the Terra USD, a stablecoin designed to maintain a constant $1 price, and the Luna token, which was closely linked to Terra USD. Both cryptocurrencies lost an estimated $40 billion or more in May 2022 when Terra USD failed to maintain its $1 peg. The SEC said Kwon and his company deceived investors about the stability of Terra USD and that a popular Korean mobile payment app used the Terraform blockchain to settle transactions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
For the first time since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the European Union is slapping sanctions on North Korea for its role in advancing the Kremlin's aggression against Kyiv. An Sung-jin tells us more.
The European Union is to impose its first sanctions on North Korea in relation to the Ukraine-Russia war. The Belgian government, which currently holds the rotating EU presidency, announced on X, formerly Twitter, that the 27 EU members approved a 13th package of Ukraine-related sanctions against Russia on Wednesday. It added that it will be one of the most extensive sanctions packages approved by the EU. France 24 stated that the North Korean defense minister and a North Korean firm are reportedly to be added to the sanctions list for supporting the Russian military. Those on the list will be banned from traveling to the EU or doing business there. The EU has previously imposed sanctions on high-ranking North Korean officials for human rights violations and violations of UN Security Council resolutions, but this will be the first time regarding the war in Ukraine. North Korea has reportedly supplied munitions to Russia against Ukraine in return for satellite technology.
At least 24 ballistic missiles of allegedly North Korean origin were used during Russia's missile attacks on the territory of Ukraine.
The new listings will add 193 entities and individuals, mostly for helping Moscow procure weapons or for their involvement in kidnapping Ukrainian children. More details will be released after the package is officially approved on February 24th, which is the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Including the most recent sanctions, the EU's sanction list over Russian aggression in Ukraine will have more than 2,000 individuals and entities. 안성진, Arirang News.
This week, Ukraine marked a grim milestone of 2 years under Russian aggression, and in light of this reality, my colleague Ji reached out to the resident head of the UN in Ukraine for her thoughts on the painful plight of people there and her calls for continued global solidarity. To take a listen.
This is what an apartment block in Kharkiv looked like after being hit by Russian missile strikes late last month. Since February 2022, thousands have been killed and millions have not been able to return to their homes. As of last month, nearly 3.7 million people remain displaced in Ukraine. And according to the UN Refugee Agency, almost 6.3 million people have crossed into neighboring countries. Denise Brown, the head of the United Nations in Ukraine, currently living in Kyiv, says the air raid sirens still go off a couple of times a day, but people seem to have grown used to them.
I think it's terrible what people can get used to. And Ukrainians, very calm, very, very calm. There's absolutely no panic that I see. My team is not panicked, but it's the stress of what is coming.
She says they've been delivering supplies to regions along the front lines 2 to 3 times a week, as those directly impacted by the war are in need of shelter, health services, bunkers for schools, and psychosocial support. She added nothing has improved, and although everyone is exhausted after 2 years, the Ukrainian people remain strong.
People are tired. It's very true that they are tired, but I don't see any faltering in their determination to stay in their homes and to continue. It's true that the people of Ukraine are very strong. People often say resilient, but it takes a toll. But I think not on the determination.
As the war enters its 3rd year and with the conflict between Israel and Gaza, there are concerns that the focus is slowly shifting away from Ukraine. And she says the most important thing that's needed from the international community is to not forget about the war-torn country.
So it's really important that governments, the member states of the United Nations, speak out about all these contexts and don't forget them, and don't forget Ukraine.
Ji, Arirang News.
It snowed a lot in Seoul during the night. The snow scene was beautiful, but as the chilly weather continued throughout the day, there were many places with snow piled up. You should be extra careful with any accidents. Currently, all snow and rain have stopped in the Seoul metropolitan area, except for some parts of Gangwon-do Province. However, snow seems to be continuing in areas on the East Coast, where a heavy snow warning remains in place. Up to 30 centimeters of heavy snow is expected in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do Province, which has already accumulated more than 60 centimeters, and up to 15 in the mountainous areas of the east coast of Gangwon-do and northeastern Gyeongsang-do Province. On the way to work tomorrow morning, there will be many icy roads with cold temperatures. Seoul will drop to minus figures, Daejeon 0 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 6 in Seoul and Gyeongju, Daejeon, Gwangju, Daegu, and Busan, 8 degrees Celsius. In Jeollanam-do Province and on Jeju Island, the rain and snow will continue until Sunday. For the time being, the morning temperatures will stay below 0. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.